Hey everyone, Leticia here. Happy Saturday. I hope your week has been a good one and welcome to your weekend. My friends, it's been so long since I've done one of my live webinars. Blame it on just laziness and lack of organization. Anyway, I also moved recently, so it's just been a little bit, it's just been a bit of shuffling in my personal life. So, anyway, happy to see you here, those of you who are able to join live, and also greetings to those of you who may be watching this after the fact. As you all know, I've been helping people with real estate in Playa del Carmen and the Riviera Maya. And one of the questions that has come up many times is, are there mortgages available for foreigners wanting to buy in Mexico? And that's what I'm going to be answering for you today, my friends. And the good news is that there are various options available, and I will cover with you the options that I'm personally aware of. There may be additional options. However, in the whole time I've been here, I've been diligently keeping my eyes open for options. So stay tuned. I will, without further ado, I will share my screen with you and get straight into it. Okay. And greetings again. Mm, mm. Okay, my friends, I'm gonna go into presentation mode, slideshow. I think that should do it. Okay, my friends, and I did do a webinar on this topic, I would say about a year ago. In the meantime, new options have come into the marketplace. It's not news to many of you that the Mexican real estate market is becoming more and more of interest to foreign buyers, in particular my fellow Canadians, as well as many Americans, as well as many other international buyers coming from different countries in Europe, South America, and so on. So let's talk about some of the options. My friends, in my experience, and you may be disappointed to hear this, but if you are especially a Canadian or American and you already own property back home, this would be your easiest and actually least expensive option, accessing what's known as a home equity line of credit against the equity in either your principal residence, or if you have a rental property. I know you're going to tell me, well, but interest rates are so high right now. They're not what they used to be. And that's part of the issue. And that's one of the reasons so many Canadians and Americans are now looking for greener pastures in Mexico. That being said, when it comes to the cost of financing, and again, I'll be happy to show you some of the options I'm aware of. I believe this will still be your cheapest option. Usually there are not upfront or initiation costs, and you also have some flexibility in terms of the repayment schedule. Sometimes you can negotiate interest only payments, so it gives you some flexibility. Okay, so I would encourage you, if you are in a position that you can access some of the equity in either your principal residence or one of your rental properties, this would still be your least expensive option. You may even want to explore the option of an unsecured line of credit. You may still find it cheaper than some of the options we're going to be discussing. Okay, that being said, let's get to what I'm aware of. So when it comes to third-party mortgage options that are available for Mexican real estate for foreign buyers, you're going to want to be looking for a property that is already finished. And if it is a condominium, that building needs to have what's known as the condo regimen. It works very similarly in Canada. If you're a client buying in pre-construction, you won't be able to apply the mortgage until that building has the condo regimen. Maybe there's a different name for it, but that's how it works here. So that's a process that can take multiple months, even past the stage that a building is fully finished. So if you are intent and know that your finances require you to use a mortgage, then you want to look for properties that already have the condo regimen, or fully finished homes. Okay. Now I'm going to talk to you about the first option, and this is from a Mexican bank called Intercam Banco. Intercam Banco, they have a program for Americans and Canadians, only for Americans and Canadians. And it's a program that they started many years ago in Baja California, and then they expanded it sometime in the last year. I would say about a year ago, they decided to expand this program all over Mexico. The only place they don't lend is Tulum, and we can get into those reasons later. But suffice it to say, if you are buying anywhere else in Mexico, including Playa del Carmen, including anywhere else in the Riviera Maya, this program is available. Okay, it's called the Intercam Dream Loan Program. Their requirement is that the property value has to be at least 250,000 US, and they will lend up to 65% of the appraised value. So the minimum loan size, as you can see there, would be about 165, 500 US. The loan length can be up to 25 years. Now, as you can see, the interest rates are quoted at 7 to 9%. I'll have to say that you as a foreigner don't have options back home, maybe you don't have a property, maybe this will be your first purchase, keep in mind they will require a minimum credit score of 700, and they will ask you for at least 2 years worth of income tax return from either Canada or the US, depending on where you're from. And one thing about dogs in Mexico, they are a constant. If you hear a dog in the background, you know you're in Mexico. Anyway, one nice thing about this loan as well, really, sorry about the dogs, not my own, I have a cat. There is no prepayment penalty, and that's something that is a constant with many of the loan options we'll be discussing. I should have closed that window. Sorry, mis amigos. Okay, another option that I'm aware of, and this is a good choice for clients that maybe are not as rich, joking. Maybe the property you have in mind is not worth 250K US or more. Maybe you're contemplating a purchase of 200,000 or less, or what have you. What these guys offer, VRA Capital, they are a North Carolina-based lender. They're an American company. They will lend to Americans and Canadians. Again, only these two nationalities. We'll get into another option that is open to world citizens. But talking about VRA Capital, they are a good option for clients who don't meet the threshold for Intercam. They offer up to 30-year amortization. And again, you will be expected to put down at least 35% down payment. So loan to value, maximum 65%. Minimum loan size, 100,000. So they still do have this minimum. It's not worth it for them to do all the paperwork for loan values less than that. That's what they explained to me. Okay, and as you can see, they also have some upfront costs, although not quite as serious as the previous lender. So 3% lender origination fee, lender legal fee, POA, power of attorney. Again, don't even ask me. All of these will be explained to you by their loan officer. Should you be interested in pursuing any of these options, I'm happy to put you in touch with my contact at any of these institutions who can handhold you through the process. Again, it will help if you already have a property in mind identified. That being said, it's not mandatory, because the same way that it works in Canada and the US, if you are thinking, listen, I think for the kind of property I want, I probably will need a loan. I'd like to explore my options first, maybe get pre-approved before you go and actually shop around. Interest rates, again, not low, mis amigos. We're talking, 10% to 12.5 currently. Okay. Buyer pays all closing costs. That is always the case. Okay. And we can talk about that. I think my next webinar will be about the buying process in Mexico for foreigners in general. I've done one a while ago, but I want to break it down a little more for you guys. So we can talk about that later. Okay. Now, a third option that I want to speak to you guys about, it's a company that only in the past year they've come to offer this program, and they call it their cross-border loan program, llave.mx, llave.mx. Llave means key in Spanish, so therefore the name. Okay. One nice thing about this loan program, it is not just for Americans and Canadians. So some of you, I've had buyers, potential clients coming from Western Europe. They were previously cut off from the other two options I was explaining to you, and one other option that I'm going to share with you about. So this is one of the few options I'm aware of that will lend to foreigners other countries. There is one more option that I'm actually not including in this webinar because they are literally the worst case scenario. They would have the highest rates, but suffice it to say, we do have some last resort options for foreign buyers in case Llave.mx is not an option. Okay. A nice thing about these guys is that they will lend up to 85% of the property value. Now, once you see those interest rates, well, as you can see, they have a currently fixed rate of 10.45% and loan terms up to 10, 15, or 20 years. There is no prepayment penalty. And again, maybe you're not going to want to do as low as 15% because when you see your monthly payments, you're like, yeah, maybe I don't want to have such a high monthly payment, but it's nice to know that this option is available. Their minimum loan amount is quite reasonable. I forgot. Let me see if I have it in my notes. Not really. Closing costs, 8%. Again, not inexpensive. As you can see, we're getting into like double-digit closing costs in terms of the actual, what I would call loan initiation fees. Okay. Don't even ask me what those things are. This was all sent to me, but obviously they need to have a lawyer. And yes, if you're going to be buying in the Riviera Maya or anywhere, what we call the restricted zone in Mexico, within 50 kilometers of the coasts or within 100 kilometers of the borders, there is an additional cost to open the bank trust structure, also known as the fideicomiso. Again, this is something that I'm happy to explain to you privately, and I will also discuss in my next webinar. Okay, so stay tuned for that. Okay, to be considered for this loan, and this is very similar to what every lender will ask you: 2 years worth of bank statements. Sorry, 2 years worth of tax returns in your home country, 6 months worth of bank statements, credit report and credit score. Now they don't have the ability to pull a foreign credit report, so they will trust you with it. You'll be asked to provide your credit report from back home. Okay, but again, if you are somebody that's behind on your taxes, sadly, none of these options are going to work for you. Okay, and it works very similar to any lender. Well, I don't say any lender, but most traditional mortgage lenders in Canada and the US. There may be some private lenders that don't care about your tax returns, but the majority of institutional lenders will ask you for that. Okay. And this, my friends, is probably the one option that most of you know about, and it's called Moxy Mortgage. Now, Moxy, they do great online advertising, so that's why I'm saying most of you will have probably heard of this option. The only thing about them is that they are only good for Americans, so again, U.S. citizens and permanent residents of the United States. For most of Mexico, they have a minimum loan amount of 250K, meaning that the property value would have to be 350K. So, you know, if you're buying a villa or maybe a condo in a fancy part of Mexico City, then that minimum threshold will be met. In the Riviera Maya, the minimum property value is 500,000. Don't ask me why. It's something to do with title insurance. They are very thorough. They are an American lender, and if you're buying an investment property, they will give you the option of writing off the interest because, again, I think this could be an interesting option for Americans, especially if you're contemplating a property in that price range. Okay, as with most of the options we've seen so far for foreigners, they do require a minimum down payment of 35%. Fixed loans up to 30-year fixed loans. And again, no prepayment penalty. So if you come into some money, you pay off the loan with no penalty. Interest rates, again, from mid to low, mid 88s. If you have an RFC or TFSA, those of you who are real estate investors already will know that, well, and not just those of you who are real estate investors, you know that you have access to certain alternative investments inside our registered funds, whether that's your RSP or TFSA. We have a company in Canada. They are licensed under the OSC, Ontario Securities Commissions, as well as other securities commissions across Canada. They enable Canadians to access up to the full value of their registered accounts, whether that's an RSP, a LIRA, a TFSA. The requirement is that you transfer these funds to a self-directed RSP account. So they work with companies such as Olympia Trust, and essentially what they enable you to do, it's all done legally. It is through an allowable vehicle inside the RSP umbrella. They will essentially, you end up loaning the money to yourself by means of this vehicle inside the self-directed RSP umbrella. I don't want to get into too many details because this is something that an OSC licensed representative can explain to you. Suffice it to say, my Canadian clients, some of my Canadian clients have been able to successfully use this. And the nice thing about this option is that you don't necessarily need to be shopping for a fully finished property. You could use it to buy a pre-construction condo, for example. You could even use it to buy land. Land typically is difficult to finance, and that's across the board anywhere, as you guys know. So, well, you may or may not know, but in general, land is not as easy to finance as other types of property. So bottom line, with this, you literally can use the money for anything as long as you're buying real estate in Mexico. And in fact, they have facilitated this program even for Canadians buying internationally, even outside of Mexico. So very interesting option. I'm happy to connect you with this company privately. So feel free to reach out to me. I'll put my contact info at the end. Okay. And again, it's modeled under our RSP first time home buyers plan. However, again, there's no limit to the amount you can access. Super interesting because, as you may know, my fellow Canadians, your RSP funds, they're meant to be there for retirement. And normally you can't access this until age 65. So without collapsing your plan, this allows my fellow Canadians to essentially access their RSP balance to buy and for what they actually want, which would be a nice property in beautiful Paradise, Mexico. Okay. My fellow Americans, no, not fellow Americans because I'm not American. For Americans, there is a similar concept available by means of a self-directed IRA. There are much more restrictions around it versus what I just shared about for Canadians. But suffice it to say, there is the option through a self-directed IRA, Americans can acquire an investment property in Mexico. It cannot be a property that you live in or that you benefit from while you're not yet retired. However, if you are looking, let's say, for better returns inside your IRA and you like Mexico real estate, this could be an option. Okay. And Mexican citizens living abroad, you are in a better position than most because there are many Mexican lenders, the largest banks in Mexico, that will consider Mexican citizens living abroad with only a 10% down payment. The same applies, by the way, my friends, this is something I didn't have a chance to put in my slides. The same applies for Mexican residents. So if you're somebody like myself who is a Mexican resident, you have an RFC, which is the Mexican tax ID, you have a credit score in Mexico, whether or not you are declaring income in Mexico or abroad, perhaps your income is from abroad. I have heard of people qualifying Mexican residents, even temporary Mexican residents who live here, who have an RFC, who have been able to qualify for mortgages, again, with as little as 10% down at the main Mexican banks like Santander, Scotiabank, HSBC. We have the array of banks again. So this is for Mexican residents. More options available. Again, if you happen to be a Mexican resident and you want to explore your mortgage options, happy to put you in touch with local mortgage brokers that can assist you. Okay, finally, let's get into some of the alternative options. While not traditional lenders, as you may be aware, when it comes to pre-construction projects, which we certainly have a lot of here in the Riviera Maya, it's a high growth area. There are developers that will finance for buyers, sometimes at either zero interest rate or a reduced interest rate. They will finance up to 50% of the property value for a period anywhere from a year and a half to, in one extreme example, up to 20 years, my friends. So very interesting. I would say there are not many developers that will do this, but some will. And I think it's a nice option if that particular property is what you're looking for. And again, I am aware of some projects like these. I don't want to get into details here, but depending on what you're looking for, I'll be happy to put you in touch. If it happens to be that one of those projects meets your needs, I'm happy to put you in touch and make things happen. Okay. In some cases, the developer will maintain title to the property until the loan is paid off. That's not uncommon. Or they will want to administer. Essentially, they maintain title, they do vacational rentals while you are still paying them off. So that's not always the case, but that is the way these types of options are structured with some developers. Okay. Now, again, not financing per se, but we do have quite a few brokerages and developers that will accept payments in crypto. In case some of you have their money in crypto, there is usually an upfront fee for doing that, 3 to 5% surcharge. But hey, those of you who are Bitcoin millionaires, wink, wink, this could be an option. Okay. And some more alternative options. Again, those of you who are investors would maybe already be familiar with something known as seller financing. That's where the seller himself or herself is able to carry a mortgage for you. So instead of you going to a third-party bank, you can just ask the seller, hey, you have full equity in this property. I'm going to give you a down payment of this much. Will you carry a mortgage for me for a 3 or 5 year period? Again, it can be negotiated. The terms of the loan are completely negotiable. I'm personally currently aware of some properties that will where the owners are open to carrying a mortgage. So in places like Canada, I know it's not very common for single family homes or condos. It's more common for multi-unit purchases, for example, or larger transactions. Here in Mexico, I have come across cases even of residential real estate where the owners are willing to do that. Okay. And if any of you are in the market for a larger building, we do have, so multi-unit, I would say 5 units plus minimum. We do have a Florida-based lender that is looking at expanding into Mexico at the moment. They will fund multi-unit deals if the numbers make sense, up to 80% LTV. That's what I was told. Interest rates could be as low as 6 to 8%. Again, depending on the deal, if the numbers make sense. If any of you have an interest in this, again, let's explore together. Okay. And finally, again, those of you who are investors, especially if you have friends and are considering acquiring a building together or like a larger project, that is that's always an option of multiple buyers coming together, joining their resources to make things happen and get into a larger purchase. Okay. So that's all I have to share with you for today, mis amigos. Hopefully you found this interesting. Thank you for tuning in. I'm going to put my contact info here. Okay. You can find me on Instagram at Freedom Playa and at my first name, last name, Leticia Montana. I am also reachable by email, and WhatsApp is probably the fastest way to reach me. Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing now. Hopefully you guys can still see me. There you are. There I am. Hi. Thanks for tuning in. Gage says he's interested. I'm not sure what he's interested in, but we can talk. We can talk. We can talk. Thanks for tuning in. So yeah, thanks again for tuning in, everyone. Have a great rest of your weekend and a great week ahead. And look forward to being in touch. And let's make your Mexico property ownership dreams a reality now with more options than ever. Okay, take care. Bye for now.